everyone, it's Miss Thompson here to show you our notes for today for making connections. I know I have accidentally bought a graph paper spiral or composition book, so hopefully you have a lined composition book, but we're just going to start at the top, and at your top, I want you to go ahead and title it Making Connections. So there are three types of connections that we're going to be talking about today, and you're going to be practicing making throughout the year, whether it be fiction or nonfiction. So the first type of connection that we're going to talk about is text to self. So we're going to go ahead and go down. You can write this on the first line or skip a couple lines. It's whatever is most comfortable to you and makes sense. I would go ahead and underline it. So a text to self connection is a connection that the reader makes between their own lives and the text. Okay, so you can go ahead and write that down. You might want to draw a little picture to help you remember. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to draw a little book. Kind of looks like a cereal box. Okay. And we'll do that. So it is a connection between the life of the reader and a book they're reading. So for example, say we're talking about a fantasy book like Harry Potter. You might think, but Miss Thompson or Mrs. Fika, like I can't make a connection to this book because it's not real. It's in the fantasy genre. They have magic. Those things don't happen to me. I don't go off to wizard school. But in every fiction story, there's somewhat of a connection that you can make to the characters or their circumstances. For example, I really connect to Harry Potter with him and his friends, like building such important friends while he was at school. So Hogwarts becomes a safe place for Harry and a place where he learns and grows with his friends. And I would say that for me, when I was in school was also a place where I met my closest friends, and I learned a lot and I grew a lot. So if you want to write that example down, that's perfect. If you have a different example that you feel like fits your understanding or your experience better, that's fine. So I'm going to write my example. Harry Potter, I'll probably write EX for example. Harry Potter has friends. I'm going to write in parentheses close that he met and hung out with at school. And I apologize. I always write my notes in this style of lettering with capitals because it just helps me read my own handwriting better. If it bothers you, you do not have to write in all caps. So I might throw a bubble or a circle, or if you're not feeling fancy, a box around that example. Perfect. All right. And I'm going to skip a couple lines and let's go to the next one. The next one we're going to do is called text to text. So this one's going to be a book, and you guessed it, another book, another cereal box looking book. Want to draw that picture because pictures help us remember, and it's just an additional muscle memory thing for you to have in your notes. It's a really great reference. I always recommend drawing or doodling. It does not really drawing, doodling in your notes. It will very much help your memory. Okay, so a text to text connection is a connection that the reader makes between the text and another text. Okay. So remember that text is just writing. It might be a short story. It might be a poem. It might be an article. It could be a novel or a memoir. It could be between any type of text. I don't know if you've ever read something and you're like, oh, this reminds me of something I learned the other day when I was reading this article. Or, hey, like, this book is really similar to this other book I've read before. When we make these connections, we have a better understanding of what's going on in our book, and we are able to build more solid connections, which build our network of understanding of how the world works and how we can start to predict how novels are going to go. Okay. So let's think. I'm thinking, let's keep with Harry Potter since I started with Harry Potter. My example this time is going to be between Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. So Harry Potter and Percy Jackson are similar because they both discover that they are extraordinary or extraordinary. Oop. And sorry, this is a long connection. And they both go somewhere, camp, school, to learn about their abilities. Woo! Okay, that was a long one. So, again, you are more than welcome to write an example that makes sense to you. If that example is good for you and you're like, oh, that, yeah, I got it. If you're like, what is Percy Jackson, Miss Thompson? Or what is Harry Potter? You might think, you might try writing down a different example and just double checking with either me or Mrs. Fika tomorrow in class just to make sure that it is correct and you want to keep that example in your notes. So I'm going to add another bubble just to keep this separate from my definitions. And last but not least, we have our text. Make sure this is in the same box. Text to world connections. Okay, and this is a connection that the reader makes between the text and society slash world slash history. Okay. So you can think of the world, you can think of the text to world connection as something maybe in the news or something that you've noticed happens in the world or something that's happened in history. So you're thinking more broadly than the text itself, because the text itself is really just something that's happened in your life. If you're thinking of things that maybe you've heard of happening to other people or but you've never personally experienced, but you know happens in the world, that is a text to world connection. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that book again for the text. And then I'm going to do my best to draw a little earth. Get that arrow in. Okay, the circle looks good. Oh, goodness. Okay. All right. Okay. We got a globe there. That looks pretty good. Okay. So let's think of an example between text to world. So, I still want to stay with Harry Potter. So maybe a good one would be um, let's do boarding school. Okay, because although that's not something that I've experienced, I went to public school my entire life. That is a thing that happens to people where they actually go to school and they move in. So, example, Harry Potter goes to a boarding school, and then maybe boarding school that I'll put in parentheses that he lives at. And then initially, Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon are like, we're not going to pay for that because it's really expensive. But they said it was covered, so he is similar to a scholarship student slash maybe special um, admit student, okay? Because boarding schools are generally pretty expensive. So that connection was a little bit of a stretch. I wish I had more time to think about it, but maybe you can think about one, especially my Harry Potter fans. If that's better, a better world connection, you can tell me tomorrow, okay? So here are the notes for today. I'm going to do maybe a box around the top and get that title. It's always nice to put the date on your notes. So today is going to be 8/31 for you guys. And there are notes for today. I'll put a picture on the next slide. I've also included an anchor chart if you need ways to start your sentence. It has sentence starters. Be prepared to watch the video of part 1 of our story, The Fight. I think you'll like it. It's pretty funny. You're going to practice making connections, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. I can't wait to see you guys.